with the problem-solving level assessment, problem-solving assessment level, again, we're in the assessment phase now, not the treatment phase. And you might find at the problem-solving assessment phase that you might have assessed a couple as not having good problem-solving skills and to resolve the problem at that stage. And so therefore, the beginning therapist or counselor should not be seduced into simply talking about the problem on the guise of gathering information without seeing the couple in action. And that could happen many times. You can have a lot of persons doing a lot of talking about the situation, a lot of persons doing a lot of talking about one another, but you are not seeing anything happening here that would demonstrate to you about whether they do have good problem-solving skills or not. And so therefore, I make it very clear at the beginning in terms of when they do agree that there's something that I can do in terms of working with them. When we both agree, me and the couple agree that yes, we can work on the problems or problems you've identified, then I let them know that the thing that I do is that there are some things I would have you do during the counseling session to give me a better feel in terms of what's going on and what's happening. So we're going to be doing more than just talking. There are some things I'll have you doing also out of sessions also, so we're going to be doing more than just talking. And so I make that very clear at the beginning of my sessions with the couple or with the family. And one of the things that's important that I make it very clear to the couple or family at the beginning is that I do expect you to talk to each other and not at each other or about each other to me. And that's very vital, where the husband needs to look at the wife and talk directly to his wife about his concerns. The wife needs to look at the husband and talk to the husband directly to the husband about her concerns and not just talk to me about the person as if they're not in the room. And so therefore I expect them to really talk to one another about the problem that they've identified that's creating some hurt in the relationship. And also when you see them really talking to one another and the way they talk to one another and kind of how they interact with one another, then it can give you an idea of whether they have okay problem-solving skills or not, or whether they need to be taught some things in the process. Now, persons may have good problem-solving skills in their careers, but within their marriage, the problem-solving skills may not work. And there are persons who have very good careers and they can solve well in terms of jobs. When it comes down to the marriage, that doesn't necessarily happens at times. And so there are, at the problem-solving assessment level, observing certain things here, and you need to ask the question, what keeps an intelligent couple from solving problems effectively? What is it that's keeping this intelligent couple in terms of solving the problem effectively? One thing I like about Olson, he gives a lot of examples that you can take a look at. But we're going to move to another level, which we call the interactional assessment level. And so the next step in integrated assessment is to look at how counterproductive interactional cycles affect problem solving. One may assess a variety of interactional sequences at this level. And it's basically, when you boil it down, you're basically looking and seeing how these people communicate really. You really are. Olson identifies something that he's called symmetrical interactions. And he said symmetrical interaction occurs when two people have similar styles. For example, if both husband and wife are domineering or will not back down, interaction between them tend to escalate to a crescendo, offering no opportunity to resolve the issue. This doesn't really become clear to you until you actually many times are in a situation where you see this happening, where both persons are domineering persons, are controlling persons, and not one of them are willing to back down. I've had several occasions where that has happened with persons that have started the counseling process with me, and they were not willing to budge at all from the way they felt about the situation in terms of marriage, and each one of them thought that they were right and the other person was wrong. And that didn't go too far in terms of working through some things. As a matter of fact, some of them just pretty much, it just wasn't going to work. There was one situation where it wasn't, the couple was not a Christian couple, but the wife was a very outgoing, very enterprising lady. She'd been in the military. As a matter of fact, that's where she met her husband in the military. Both of them were in the military, and he was a psychiatric ward specialist in the military. It just so happened that they were in the process of being married for so many years and had children, we might be, and eventually coming out of the military. The thing that happened is that when I saw that both of them were very domineering when it came down to their stances that they would take, I really I said, okay, any one of you are willing to kind of back up and kind of say, okay, let me just kind of back up and just see what this person had to say. He wasn't willing to do it. She wasn't willing to do it. I went and said, okay, let me try this situation about what happened when you first saw one another. What was the thing that attracted you to your wife, and what was the thing that attracted you to your husband? They said, well, nah, the thing that happened is that our friends told us that we make a good-looking couple. I said, oh, that's why we're married, because our friends said we make a handsome-looking couple here. I said, that's interesting. So therefore, I saw that the thing that was going to probably have to happen here is that instead of couple counseling, that wasn't going to work too well until they had individual counseling. And so therefore, I referred them to a very good a family therapist that would work with them in terms of individual counseling. And the lady, of course, took advantage of that in terms of working with the therapists, doing the individual work and stuff. I have not heard or gotten feedback from what happened with that situation, but I was nervous about it because it seemed as though both of them had dominating personalities and were not willing to really give an inch at all. So, but that's what Olson looked at the symmetrical interaction. He talked more about it. But I'm going to move on to the complementary interaction sequences. The behavior or response of one party fits that of the other party. For example, if the husband is domineering, his wife submissive, they have a complementary interaction, which would probably stay balanced. If a wife yells and gets hysterical while her husband remains calm and passive, they too have a complementary interaction. These complementary interactions tend to maintain homeostasis. Now, he's saying that it tends to maintain homeostasis, but he's not saying that it tends to resolve the problem. We said that homeostasis is where a system is going to try to keep function as it's functioning, no matter how it is functioning, whether it's functioning well or not. It's going to try to maintain his homeostasis the way it has been functioning. And so therefore, it doesn't mean that this is the best what it might be. It's just saying that this complementary interaction tends to maintain homeostasis. And so two known example of complementary interaction are the pursuer-distancer interaction and the codependent addiction interaction. That doesn't sound too healthy to me, does it? Okay. In the pursuer-distancer dance, one person pursues while the other distances. One spouse or parent constantly says we need to talk more or must spend more time together, while the other responds maybe later, or I'm too busy. Both stay frustrated and insist that the other is the problem. The way they punctuate, and that's defined really, their interaction, blocks any type of self-focus, perpetuating the cycle of blaming the other, which in turn prevents any constructive problem solving. And that's another one that we're going to be taking a close look at, the pursuer-distancer interaction especially. In the codependent addict relationship, one person, the codependent, derives satisfaction from taking care of the other, using an alcoholic or substance abuser in a counterproductive manner. For example, a woman married to an alcoholic would not confront his drinking or its effect on the family, but would make excuses and bail her husband out of difficult situations. For example, by calling up his boss and saying he was sick when he was simply hungover from drinking the night before. Her behavior enabled him to continue drinking without facing the consequence of his behavior. He, on the other hand, would continue to drink, relying on his wife to keep him from facing the consequence of his behavior. Parents occasionally get into this pattern with their adolescents. Instead of holding them responsible and helping them face the consequence of their behavior, they may cover for them in school, hence enabling their irresponsible behavior to continue. And again, we call this kind of not on the codependent sort of behavior. We might call this person being enablers as such. And so therefore, but many times people are not aware of this kind of behavior that they're doing. They're not aware of it as such. They are just saying, I'm doing my duty as a wife, what it might be, and so on. They might complain about it, but if you try to really bring about a change in that interaction and that codependent relationship, if you try to bring about a change, you're going to find yourself getting resistance. The very person who's complaining about that individual that's in a codependent relationship with that person or an enabler is the very person who's going to sabotage your ability, you're trying to get them out of it. That mother who's trying to say, hey, you need to come here and help my son to really become more responsible and face the consequences of his behaviors is that same mom who would, every time you try to do something constructive with that son, will come in and find some way of sabotaging your work that you've done with the person. And so therefore, but once you have heads up on it, you say, okay, I see that this is a person is trying to maintain this homeostasis here, no matter how bad he's complaining about it all the time, but no matter what I try to do, they still come in and sabotage it, and so forth and so on. And that's why one of the things, the dynamics that I think that police officers are, hopefully that they've had in their training, because many years ago, prior to their getting training in terms of what was going on in domestic violence, many of them were getting killed. And it was so prevalent back in the 70s, what it might be, that these police officers were getting killed and murdered when they intervened into these domestic disputes. They had to really step back and say, we need to get some training in this area here. Something is going on here that we are not aware of. We need heads up on this one. And so therefore they started getting training in terms of these kinds of dynamics, the codependent sort of stuff, the enabler sort of stuff, getting into this triangle sort of what it might be. And so many of them started getting heads up in terms of saying, okay, we have to be very careful about something of this nature. So I tell you as counselors what it might be careful when you find yourself getting into certain sort of situations that you're not too familiar with, where there is domestic violence going on. One pastor got a call from his parishioner, the lady that attended his church, and she was in dire straits because her husband was in a foul mood and was really was really attacking her. And so the pastor grabbed his associate minister and went running over there. Now, the husband was not one who would attend the church much. He was not a church goer. And so, therefore, he went with the associate minister into the house, of course, and as they entered the house, the husband came after them with a butcher knife and stabbed both of them. Only by the grace of God they didn't die. No. Only by the grace of God they did not die. And so therefore, the reality of these kinds of dynamics going on in terms of certain sort of relationships, you have to really have heads up in terms of the complaints and this and that and so forth and so on. You got to really start looking at what's going on here. The counselor needs to know what keeps a couple in such counterproductive interactions. What is it that is keeping these persons in this counterproductive interaction, in this codependent sort of interaction? No matter what I do, the person that is complaining about the person who's the alcoholic or whatever, the adolescent acting out, no matter what I do, they're still here protecting this person. As a matter of fact, they might find themselves getting angry at you if you say something that they don't like about the person that they say they want you to help. And so therefore you got to say, okay, what is it that's keeping the couple in such a counterproductive interaction here, relationship? And so therefore, as long as they're in that kind of pursue a distance or dance, as long as they're in a codependent sort of relationship, you're not going to resolve the problem that they present to you. You're going to be working more so on that. You're going to be thinking that you're working on the problem, and you're going to find yourself working on the dance that they're in. Find yourself dealing with the codependent. You're going to more find yourself there, and you're not going to be resolving the problem. So you got to find out what is interfering here in terms of not being able to really get them out of this kind of dance or what it might be. And that means you have to go to another level of assessment. It didn't happen at the problem-solving level. You're having problems in terms of looking at the interactional or communication level. So therefore, I got to go to another level in terms of assessing what is interfering here. And that's where you do your structural assessment. It's getting hot in this room. Structural problem in the family may also block problem-solving abilities. Interactional deal also. For example, if the mother and father in an intact family, and they say intact family, that means mother, father with siblings, are so divided due to marital difficulties, they are unable to function as an executive subsystem, then the family will not have adequate structure to allow for effective problem solving. Here we have, when we look at the structural level, we're looking at, again, it looked like nothing was really happening too well here in terms of working out the problem, be it with an adolescent, or problem be it with dealing in terms of marriage at the problem-solving level. That didn't work out too well. Nothing's going on. And then as we were trying to do the problem-solving deal, we saw that some interactional things that were going on here. They were in a kind of a dance, and we couldn't really work anything out, problem-solve there. So what's interfering here? So you go to the structural level, and find out, okay, what's going on here, and you're finding out that they are not at the period of time to work as an executive subsystem. In other words, as husband and wife that's responsible for the siblings. In other words, when you're looking at the subsystem here, you're looking at subsystems, you're looking at the marital subsystem, you're looking at the parental subsystem, and you're looking at the sibling subsystem in an intact family. Okay? And so therefore, if the executive subsystem, which is the family part, the marital part, is not working too good, you know the parental part is not going to work too good. So you know the husband and wife are not really cooperating or working well together here. There's a big conflict. You know, kids most of the time very much aware of it. Very much aware of it. Okay? Well, if that's not working, then they're not going to be providing the sort of parental structure that's needed for the kids. And so therefore, this is going to block any kind of problem solving that they really brought in to the situation to you that they wanted to really work on. In addition, some structural alliance effectively block problem solving. If one parent attempts to discipline a child and the other parent gives privileges back to that child, the family is not developing problem solving and parenting skills, and the child is caught in unhealthy triangle with the parents. And you've seen that. Well, it happens. You go to dad, you go to mom. So, Mom, can I watch television? And Mom asks, well, have you done your homework? No, I'll do my homework after I watch television. These are just down-to-earth examples, okay? Not from the book, okay? Okay? And of course, the child, the mother says, no, you got to do your homework first before you do that. Well, kid goes and says, go to Dad. Dad, can I watch a little television? After I watch television, I'll, do my homework. And I said, yeah, go on and watch some television. That's fine, What's going to happen here? Here, Mom comes in and watches the kids watching television. So, who told you to watch television here? I told you to need to do your homework. So, well, Dad said I can watch television. Then your dad, yeah, I told him he can watch television, so what's wrong with that? And here we go. We got a conflict here. And here Mom and Dad duking it out and the kids just looking. The probably sitting back saying, that's a manipulation also, okay? And so here here the child is many times used that as a way of manipulating the parents in terms of getting, their way. It's very unhealthy for the child, unhealthy for the parental relationship, but hey, boom, so there's some kids who are wise enough to know how to do it. Only when they wise up, parents wise up and say, now we got to really present a unified front here. Will this kid not end up being so successful and getting Mom and Dad at one another's throat? And so this was really one of the situations where the couple came in and the woman who had just married the guy who had been married for 2 years was having trouble with a 15-year-old adolescent boy. And it just so happened that as we brought him into the counseling situation, he was a spitting image of his dad in every form of action, behavior, gestures, and everything else. Very bright, very intelligent, and he definitely knew exactly what he was doing in terms of irritating, he called it stepmother, and knew exactly what he was doing when he got his father to take up for him. And knew exactly what he was doing when he had got them in an argument with one another. But the thing that he didn't understand is that as they started working in the counseling with me, they started getting pretty much aware of what needed to be done. But the thing about it is that when they really became aware of what needed to be done and started taking a look in terms of what was going on with the kid, they found out that the kid was heavily into smoking marijuana. That none of them were aware of until later on. And that's when they came together as a unit together and really just present a unified front to him in terms of, no, that's not going to happen in the house here. Of course, when they first said that's not going to happen, and you're not going to be doing this how we found, it's not going to happen, well, he got an attitude. He said, well, I'll just leave. Just said it so nonchalant, I'll just leave then. Of course, eventually they worked out things. But the key issues that the counsel must success concern the structure of the family, the alliances between parents and children. You have to look at that. You have to look at the triangles, how boundaries are maintained between generations. Now, sometimes you find grandparents coming into the situation also. But there are cultural dynamics you have to be aware of too when you look at the grandparents sort of part here. You have to watch. Now, we know that the parents need to parent their kids. You know, we know that the parents are the ones that, you know, need to be doing it. There are some situations where the grandparents or the grandmother, what it might be, might just override the parents. They might override what the parent is telling their kids to do. So therefore, you just look at it and say, okay, now, let's take a look at this. Now, if you got to look in terms of certain sort of, you have to understand, in this situation here, you have to really understand the cultural dynamics going on here. Because in some cultures, in all honesty, you got to watch it. Because if you tell that grandmother that no, you don't need to be trying to override what this parent is saying, you know, you need to stay out of it and let the parent deal with it, you might lose the whole family. Because that grandmother might be the power source in that whole family. Okay? Heads up on that one, on some cultures. Because I was watching one therapist, and I was hoping that she wouldn't overstep her boundaries. There was a family therapy session, really. 5 siblings, teenagers primarily, and 4 girls and a boy. And the counselor was really counseling the 3 girls, and I had not next to the youngest girl and the boy, and individual counseling, but I was doing the family work with this other counselor. This other counselor came very close to saying something in that counseling session, in a way almost chastising the grandmother. That when she started to going in that area of doing that, I saw all of the kids look at that therapist in a very, you better not go there way. You better not go there. And that therapist had sense enough to pull back. Okay? Had sense enough to pull back. And so even if you are looking in terms of boundaries which are maintained between generations, there are certain kinds of, this was an African American family, there are certain kinds of dynamics you must understand about that culture, and who is that significant, powerful person in that culture many times, before you start to saying who should be doing what and not be doing what in terms of the kids in the family. So heads up on that one. I'm glad this therapist pulled back on that one. However, the therapist really didn't get the message and end up in a real constant conflict with this grandmother, to the extent that the grandmother ended up saying, I'm going to fire this therapist. I'm going to get this therapist out of my family. And she managed to eventually get that therapist out. And I said, well, you know that I'm a minister now. And you're a Christian lady. But I never crossed the boundaries as such. So I stayed just doing the family therapy by myself. It was okay, because I didn't have to try to break up the fight between the grandmother and the therapist in terms of certain things. But watch the boundaries. Structural assessment of structural problems stemming from marital problems or blocking problem solving, enabling the couple to fight with one another through their child. If something is not working, if you can't work it out at the problem solving level, you can't work it out at the interaction level because there's structural things going on in terms of this family not functioning, the executive subsystem, husband and wife not functioning good together. So therefore, you're not going to resolve the problem they're presenting. So therefore, you're just saying, okay, what is it then that we need to look at in terms of further assessing what might be happening here? The process of the dialogue with this couple, and the process of the dialogue with this family, pay close attention. My deal is that I always have to have the Lord help me to really be able to listen, because with my carnal mind, I miss a lot of stuff. Have you ever had someone tell something, make a statement, and everybody kind of look at you, everybody got it but you? And then after they kind of explain it to you, And so therefore, you have to listen very carefully. It might be pay attention to certain sort of words that are being spoken, how people speak about certain things, because you might find some cognitive stuff coming up. And that means when you find some cognitive stuff coming up, then that means you need to look in terms of cognitive level. So sometimes structural or interaction interventions are adequate to produce the necessary changes, are not adequate enough to produce the necessary changes in a couple or family. But at other times, it is. I made a mistake here. Sometimes you might, at the structural level or at the actual level, might be adequate enough to resolve some things to solve the problem. That would be nice. My preference is if I could solve it at the problem-solving level. Take a very few sessions, that'd be great. I can move on to the next level, okay? But the families that I've had, of course, I've had many of them for about one family for 6 years, one family for 7 years, couples 2 years, 3 years. So mine have been pretty much long-term. I've had many. I have not had a lot of short-term, not too short-term, except for a few persons who are in crises, as such. But mine have been most of the time end up being long-term, because there's so many dynamics that started popping up, especially when you deal with families who have teenagers, pre-adolescent teenagers, and couples who have some really deep, unresolved issues that end up popping up as such. So my counseling has been a lot long-term. But at times he's right. Sometimes structural interaction interventions are adequate to produce the necessary change in a couple of families. But at other times, the couple of family has difficulty making the needed changes, and they don't even have a clue why. But the unfortunate part about it is you as that counselor don't have a clue why. That's the unfortunate part. That's why, you have to really listen very carefully. That's why, in all honesty, you have to be very patient. That's why you have to say, hey, you might say, well, this might not be my cup of tea. Might not be my area. I might have to find somebody that's in the church, what it might be, who can really do this kind of stuff, because I can only just tolerate maybe a few minutes or 5, what it might be, with this kind of situation, but when it comes down to going down into some of this heavy stuff that they're throwing at me, in spite of the fact I'm the pastor, now a lot of pastors feel that just because they're the pastor, they should be able to solve all the problems. That's a mistake. And the biggest mistake you make as pastors is that you leave the Holy Spirit out. And you're not even aware of the fact that you're not paying attention to what God is telling you to do. I mean, Moses had to come to an understanding of he was taking on too much through his brother-in-law Jethro. He said, Moses, why are you trying to take care of every problem that the person is presenting to you? And don't you understand that this is going to wear you out? He said, then why don't you look among you and find you some spirit-filled men that can judge and deal with those minor sort of things that are coming up, And then you only deal with some of the major ones that come up, okay? And so even Moses had to be brought heads up here in terms of what you can deal with, what you need to be dealing with, what you don't need to be dealing with. And there are some pastors must understand that yes, fine, you have some things, some skills, what might be, that's fine. But you might need to have some other person that is full of wisdom in the Holy Spirit of God, that God has given a gift, of the counsel, what it might be, that you might have to assign those persons to that can go further with them, taking base with you as a pastor, yes, it might be, but can go further with them in terms of working with them. And that's what you need to do. Because here, if you go down, you're looking at the cognitive assessment level, you have to go down here. So some couples simply understand that they were locked and they pursue a distance dance was not enough to enable them to make the change necessary for the relationship change to occur. This pursuit dancer sort of deal, the more one pursues, the more the other person backs away. Their understanding that they're in that kind of dance is not enough for them to really bring about a change. It's not enough for that awareness. And so therefore the counsel may need to go further, need further information to assess the underlying beliefs that help maintain the counterproductive dance. What is the underlying belief of each one of these persons that are keeping them in this counterproductive dance? Of course, Olson goes more in detail and talk about it. But as developed by Beck, which he did, cognitive therapists seek to understand and correct the irrational beliefs that undergird counterproductive behavior. Irrational beliefs that undergird counterproductive behavior. Even Ellis, Havelock Ellis, especially in Geiger in 1977, popularized the theory with an ABC schema. A equals activating event, B equals belief system, C equals consequences. Of course, when this first came out, I was looking at it and said, that's not my cup of tea. In terms of when it first came out, I'm a family therapist with a biblical sort of deal here, and so therefore, Ellis with his rational emotive therapy and Beck with his cognitive therapy and so forth and so on. I was really one who was looking at this with some kind of trepidations here. As Olson is explaining this, that many people think an activating agent such as one person criticizing another produces an emotional consequence, perhaps depression. But one must not leave out the belief system, which determines the meaning that a person attributes to the activating event. Now, one example was really interesting here, just aside here, which can tell how someone might just misinterpret something that is said or a behavior that is made. As I said, but one must not leave out the belief system which determines the meaning that a person attributes to the activating event. And one of the examples here that's really brought something close to home in terms of just looking at this, and I've been in many situations, even my own marital sort of situation, where a certain kind of statement or behavior, what it might be, had been misinterpreted. And I needed to, which I did, find out what happened here, where this behavior that I did, was misinterpreted. And so as my wife talked to me about some things, and as she went back and started to talk about certain things that had happened, I said, oh, okay, now I can understand that due to that factor there, that behavior or that verbalization ended up activating something here that was you perceive as being bad news here. And of course, I always have to ask for forgiveness and apologize, but thanks for letting me know. One of the things that happened that activated a behavior on a part of my younger daughter, and now, of course, she's recently turned 25, bless her heart, my oldest daughter's only 26, so they were just close together. But one of the things I know when she was at FOS in this last a year at FOS and about getting ready to graduate and so forth and so on, and I knew that she wouldn't want to do anything that would would make Dad upset with her. That was my younger daughter. And if she felt she did anything to make Dad upset with her, oh boy, she just couldn't take it, And so my being aware of that sensitivity that she had in terms of that, I made certain that I would conduct myself in ways that she would not interpret that as being, a negative, unhappy situation with her. Now my older daughter was a different story. She could care less. As a matter of fact, she was just one of these persons that, hey, you tell me not to do something, I'm going to do it. But that was mostly to get it toward Mom, not toward me. But it was a curious thing happened. It was interesting, and I don't know what happened there, and I don't even know about the underlying irrational belief going on here. But I know that when Mom, my younger daughter, myself, and my wife were in the room here talking at the table, what it might be, the phone rang, I answered the phone. Okay, it was someone who wanted to speak to my daughter, and so I said, "Well, he's one of your friends want to speak to you." And so I gave her the phone, and so Mom and I just calmly got up from the table and went into another section of the place, the house, and when we did that, she just put the phone down and ran up the stairs crying. Now, I looked at Mom, and Mom looked at me. I said, did we do anything? What did we do? I was going through my head, what did I do? And Mom looked at me, I just handed the phone, so it said the phone was, for you, and I just went to the room, and didn't think anything of it, but when she ran up the stairs and went to the room and slammed the door, I was, oh, for goodness sakes, what has happened here? So I just kind of waited, for a little bit, and I always tell parents, I said, sometimes you need to just wait for a little bit. Don't go running up there, telling like, yo, slam the door. And all. No, don't do all that kind of stuff, Of course, I wouldn't have done this to my daughter anyway. But I gave her some time, and I went up there, and I knocked on the door and asked her, well, it was okay for me to come in. She said, yeah. And she was just crying in bed. I said, well, I'm confused. I said, Dad loves you, and I would not do anything to harm or hurt you. I said, but what happened here? And she said, well, when you handed the phone to me and you and Mom left our room, I just felt that you just didn't want anything to do with me anymore. You just didn't want to. I said, oh, no. I said, Mom and myself went out of the room so that you can have some privacy, And I said, now, what could have been what happened here where she has distorted, this gesture as such. But this was happening sometime in terms of, a certain sort of belief system that a person has, and in this belief system, there's something that's going on here that might end up distorting the meaning of a behavior or an event that might come about. But the thing about it is that you got to have heads up on this, females as well as males, and even during the counseling part here. We're going to talk some more about this, because in all honesty, you watch. You need to, again, this is where God's Spirit helps you out here. This is information that man is giving you that you need to have so you can understand some human dynamics. Because now you're not Jesus. Jesus knew the heart of men. Okay? He knew the heart of men. But you need the guidance of the Holy Spirit of God to guide you through things. Okay? Because you don't know the heart of men. You don't. But the Holy Spirit does and can be your guide and to lead you. And that's why it's always important for you to always have Proverbs 3:5 in the front of your head at all times. All times. Those of you who are in any capacity of ministry, you need to have Proverbs 3:5 in your head at all times. And go over it and over and over it, where it tells you to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. And I tell you many times we just get messed up on a Sunday, what it might be, when we forget that and start to doing certain sort of behaviors that we don't understand, and a person might misinterpret that. It might go through that belief system grid, what it might be, where that meaning is misinterpreted, and so therefore it can create some problems for some persons. And the thing about it is that you don't know all of your congregation. You don't know what's going on within their deal. Only the Spirit of God can help you to come to know that. And so there are many ministers, many pastors in the process of really, and young persons, ministers as such, in the process of really doing certain sort of deal, be there hugging or what it might be someone, don't understand that sort of way you hug, the way you, what it might be, according to that person's belief system that they have, could be really misunderstood in a way. And I've heard many persons tell me that I just don't like the way that pastor hugged me. I felt very uncomfortable. Or I've heard some of the ladies in the church, the older ladies in the church, I don't like the way that young minister is really dealing with those young girls or hugging those young girls. And that young minister doesn't have a clue. This past Sunday, I looked at a situation, and it really got on my nerves, is that where this minister, the lady that was in a lot of distress, very much a lot of distress, this minister called himself working or consoling this lady who was in a tight, continuous hug. And I said, now his dad needs to come on out here because I'm about ready. I said, now you need to, I'm in a tight, continuous hug here. That's lasting, I said, now this is not going to get it. Okay? This is not going to get it. This is not appropriate. And this is something here where, again, if this lady as such if she came back and said, you know what, I really feel, now this would not be irrational. This would be a realistic. I really felt that this minister was really, groping on me. And complain about it, she would be justified. She really would be. She really would be justified. And so therefore, when it comes to the cognitive part here, really, you have to really pay attention to how a person's belief system or the activating events from that person's belief system produces certain emotional reaction or emotional consequences. Thus one may become depressed if one believes at a critical moment that a critical moment is evidence that one is totally incompetent or that everybody should like me and say positive things. If a person has that kind of belief system that everybody should like them and that everybody should say positive things about them, you know, and if not, they start feeling totally incompetent or what it might be, then that's going to create some problems there. You know, and there are some situations where that has happened. You know, if there are some persons who feel that men primarily should not cry. Men, you're not a man if you cry. As one of the mothers of the church did in terms of her husband, old military war veteran, Korean War, you know, and Purple Heart, everything else, wounded several times, what it might be, excellent cook, you know, for the church, and they're dependable for every anniversary, you know, cooking for the church as such, and the church members decided that we were just going to really surprise him with a recognition of how his laws and the thing that they're doing. We were just going to surprise him with that and so forth and so on, and do homage to him and everything. And they had set up a situation where everybody in the church was there, and the wife brought him in, and everybody just greeted him, you know, with love and clapping and so forth and so on, to present him with some things. And as he sat down, he began to cry, and his wife told him very loudly to shut up. A man is not supposed to cry. And he shut up. He cut those tears off real fast. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He did. Yeah. But where did that belief system come from? You know? Where is it when a male might say, well, I can't deal with my wife because women are so emotional. They get so emotional, you can't do a thing with them. That's why I don't even try to talk anything with them, because they're too emotional. Where did that come from? When you hear these kind of statements in the counseling sessions, okay, where did this kind of belief system, where is that belief system here, the cognitive stuff here? We want to start to really looking at this, you know. There are some persons who feel that if they can't do this thing the exact way they feel that is perfect, then they are not going to do it at all. Not at all. No. Where does that come from? The cognitions that are coming out, what it might be, one's belief system. It said an integrated family assessment, understanding beliefs and interpretation of events is central. That is very important, because some stuff is going to come out. See what I told you, Pastor? The time we started talking about something serious, she started crying. I told you women are nothing but emotional creatures. That's all. Emotional. And you hear these kinds of statements start coming out. Now, just don't let those statements just pass by. Those are some that you have to really just hold there and say, that needs to be examined eventually. That needs to be looked at. Where did this come from? In terms of these kinds of statements that a man is not supposed to, women are so emotional. I got to be, where are these things coming from here? That needs to be examined. When you find certain things coming out of your mouth in terms of your relationship with your wife, your family, and saying certain things, many times you ought to stop and think, now where did that come from? Where did that come from? And I heard somebody just hit it right on the nose when they mentioned something we're going to come to as such. Where does it come from? That's what you start asking the question as that counselor. Now, where is this coming from? And work with this part here. So therefore, assessing a belief system of two related persons usually reveals that their belief system are complementary. The belief of one person reinforces the belief of the other. And you're going to find that sort of clarification of that in your book on page 46, really. Structural problems are maintained by belief systems. Although it is infrequently not difficult to assess structural problems in working with families, it is not easy to make structural changes in families, and that's very important. If a counselor's intervention does not work in interrupting unhealthy structure of a couple, and the same behavior continues, the counselor needs to wonder about what maintains the intransigence or the change that's not taking place. He or she needs to speculate about the belief system that the couple espoused. When Ralph started to explore with Mr. Peterson why he worked so stubbornly against his wife's parenting techniques, he exploded. She tries to control everybody and everything. If I don't help Adam, she'll destroy him and make him a mama's boy. As Ralph attempted to understand this explosion, he realized that Mr. Peterson's belief about his wife's desire to control led him to fight her through his son. Mrs. Peterson's belief was complementary. She explained calmly, this, referring to the explosion that just occurred, is why I have to do everything. If I trusted him to handle the parenting, he'll screw it up and wind up screaming at the kids. It's not worth it. Their mutually reinforcing beliefs maintained the problem and made change difficult. Ralph realized that he would have to help them not only with the structural problems, but with the belief systems that maintain their counterproductive structure. It's almost like, well, for goodness sakes, if I want anything done right, I got to do it myself. Where the other person complaining for nothing like I do seem to really be right in terms of my wife, my wife said, well, if I want something done right, I have to do it myself. Here we go. What is really, where are these things coming from in terms of these belief systems that maintain the kind of productive structure that's going on in this family or this couple? Of course, one person already mentioned it. It's the family of origin stuff. So you need to start really looking at the person's family of origin. And belief systems are frequently have their roots in family of origin material. For example, if one grew up in a dysfunctional family where anger erupted regularly in screaming, breaking dishes, and perhaps even physical abuse, one learns quickly that anger was bad and to avoid it at all costs. However, it can work the other way too. The person can take on that same kind of behavior and become explosive, what it might be, and become physically abusive toward their spouse too. Thus, one form of belief frequently not verbalized and perhaps not even conscious that anger results in destruction and therefore must be repressed. It's not good to get angry, so therefore I have to repress my anger. Conversely, if one grew up in a family that never expressed anger or even other emotions, one might also believe that anger or other emotions are bad and should be repressed. One has no models to the contrary. Beliefs about anger, communication, finances, or the nature of marriage and family usually grow out of one's childhood experiences. Keep that in mind. Whether you're aware of it or not, it does. These beliefs emerge as one creates one's own family, particularly when anxiety and stress occurs. You can look at page 48 to 49 to get an example there. Like many couples, Paul and Deborah can identify the interactional patterns they're caught in and may even recognize the belief system underlying their problem, but assessment must frequently go to another level to help the couple or family understand and deal with the impact of previous generations, or treatment will not progress. Couples and family must be helped to see that they are the recipients of a generational legacy. And so you have to look at family of origin stuff. And I would advise each and every one of you to take a look at or reflect upon your family system that you came from. Some persons would always say, I said that I'll never do what my mother does, my father does. And somebody ended up saying, well, you know what, later on I'm doing just what my mother did. I'm doing just what my father did. And I said I wasn't going to do it. And that's interesting. If it's telling you what impact that your family of origin have on you. Now, as we go further down here, it is telling you that hopefully in using this integrative model, you don't have to get down to this level. Hopefully that you can resolve the problem that's been presented by the couple or the family before getting down to this level. It just so happened that the ones that I've had long-term counseling, it was in long-term counseling, I've had to get down to this level here, go down to all these levels, especially look at the family of origin level, where I've had the family do a genogram, a graphical family, in order to even start understanding some things. And then the thing that was so devastating for me at one while is that I was wondering how come still, after 5 years working with this young man, nothing wasn't really making a lot of progress. You know, what was happening here? He was still he's a young minister, and had his call at a very early age. He felt, but he was still stealing. He was still being very nasty toward his sisters and cursing them and stuff. And so I was just wondering, what is it that I'm missing out on that I don't know of, that this young man is continuing to really show these inappropriate behaviors. Well, you know, preachers goes around preaching and